Hey guys, welcome back to the latest episode of the Growing a Dental Practice podcast. I am your host, Mike Hennon from Patient Boost. In today's episode, I'm joined by Simon Reynolds, Managing Director of Patient Plan Direct. Patient Plan Direct is the UK's leading dental plan provider, offering cost-effective dental plan administration with a personal service. Welcome to the show, Simon. Thanks for joining me today. How are you?
I'm really good, thanks, Mike. Thank you so much for having me on.
Keeping cool?
Yeah, I am this week. Perhaps not so last week or over the weekend. I hate moaning about the weather because I am a big fan of the sun, but only if you're out enjoying it, not so much when you're in an office and working.
When you're working without air conditioning, which I think we both are right now, you do feel it. And like, I'm looking forward to those cold winter nights where you need a duvet.
Yeah, no, exactly. I was saying that exactly same thing to my missus the other day. But I am hoping for good weather this weekend. We're at the races, celebrating a good year so far with the team. So
fantastic!
A bit of sunshine would be nice.
Awesome, right? Yeah, fingers crossed it stays dry until the weekend.
Yeah, hopefully.
So obviously I've touched on the fact that you do, dental plans for dental practices. But before we dig into that a bit more, I'd love to know more about yourself, Simon, and what's your background?
So background is that I've actually only recently rejoined Patient Plan Direct, which was in January of this year. But prior to that, I actually worked 6 years in the business as commercial director before I just decided I need to scratch an itch and do something a little different. So I actually moved to the Isle of Man, which is where my girlfriend's family is, and explored a couple of different things over there before coming back into the world of dentistry. A couple of people have said to me, once you're in it, it just has this habit of pulling you back in, and I'm absolutely a case study for that. But yeah, prior to that, I actually joined what at the time was the parent company's, Patient Plan Direct's parent company. It's now a standalone company, but at the time I joined that company fresh out of university and sort of worked my way through the ranks and sort of fell into dentistry that way, really.
Fantastic. And is the parent company dental related, or is it just sort of patient?
No, it's payments related.
Okay.
And the two companies split, and Patient Plan Direct has been a standalone company for a good few years now. But that is sort of the connection between that, because in essence, the sort of the actual mechanics, I guess, of a dental plan is payment processing.
Mm-hmm. Perfect, man. And what is it about dentistry that kind of has got you hooked, and what brought you back?
It's quite a small community. There's lots going. I think there's a lot of exciting things happening in the market at the minute. To be honest, that's what probably brought me back more than anything. But yeah, just also had on that front, for example, there's just a huge shift at the minute from NHS to private dentistry, which is very aligned with the services that we offer, and a lot of focus for us around our proposition and the support and the way we're structuring our team and supporting our clients is geared to helping practices achieve such objectives. I think it's quite exciting, the shift and evolution of dental groups. I prefer to call them dental groups rather than corporates, because I think there could be a bit of a negative connotation sometimes with corporates, but a lot of these groups are doing fantastic work now in just leveraging the economies of scale and the efficiencies that can come with bringing groups together. Bringing practices together to create a group. Then that's I think the market's already at around 27, if not more, % market share owned by groups, and it's definitely going to go more that way. So I think that's quite exciting for dentistry over the next few years.
Awesome, man. That's really cool. So before we go sort of very specific onto dental plans, what is a dental plan? Just for anyone that lives under a rock or just isn't aware.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. So, a dental plan in its simplest form is a mechanism for a patient to budget for their ongoing regular care. So they're paying usually a monthly, it can be an annual, but the whole concept is to break it down and almost make it like a utility bill, really, but for your dental care. And there are two core types of dental plans. So you've got the original concept, which was what would be called a full care or a capitation plan. So that's where a patient is banded, usually from, say, category A to E. And in essence, it's a risk analysis of a risk assessment, of just how much care and treatment they may require over the course and duration of their plan. So, a low risk patient may be in a category A, whereas a higher risk may be in a category E, and they pay a reflective amount on a monthly basis to cover their routine checkups and hygiene, but also any routine treatment as well. More recently, when I say recently, still a good number of years back, but the much more common type of plan these days is what's termed a maintenance or membership plan. So this doesn't require a banding, because it doesn't require or a patient to be dentally fit to join a plan. And this would just cover an agreed volume of dental exams per annum and hygiene visits per annum, usually with a nominal discount off treatment if required, but not including treatment. And that's a much more common plan type these days. It's much easier to manage moving forward and much more in line with market trends from both a practicer's perspective and a consumer perspective.
Yeah, awesome, man. Really, really good definition. So can you guys assist with both types?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, to be completely honest with you, with any, I can't recall a practice in the last 7 or 8 years that we've dealt with that's been launching a new plan for the first time that has opted for a care capitation type plan. And the reasons for that are just that in an ideal world, a capitation plan works whereby you're making an assessment as to how much treatment somebody may need and the level of care they need. But whether they need that care or whether it works out to the advantage of the patient or the practice is a bit of an unknown. There can also be outside influences that just impact on a patient's care requirements moving forward. That means that their category may need to be moved. So it's an ongoing assessment. It's quite cumbersome and time consuming in managing. And if you get it wrong, then it can mean either the practice is out of pocket, but also there are instances where if a dental practice is getting that income but not delivering the actual care and treatment a patient needs, then there's issues with clinical neglect. And there can be a whole host of risks associated with a capitation type plan. So much more common these days. That being said, if you manage it correctly and you keep on top of it, it's a fantastic proposition. And we absolutely have a number of clients that particularly we've switched from other plan providers where there's that historical base of that type of plan patient. Then we sort of have those on our books, so to speak. But much more common these days is the maintenance membership type plan.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, the type 1 does sound like it's got quite a few more moving parts.
Absolutely.
Than type 2. So yeah, I guess it's people want to keep it simple these days, don't they?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm a firm believer in that in just a lot of things in life. If you can keep something simple, do it.
Keep it simple, stupid, isn't it?
Yeah. The KISS approach, definitely.
Awesome, man. That's perfect. Well, thanks for sort of summarising, what a plan is. What are some of the benefits specifically to the patient? Now, you have kind of touched them, but if I'm a patient, someone's sort of mentioning a dental plan, what are the benefits to me as a patient?
Yeah, well, generally speaking, it is in a lot of instances, it's financially orientated. So it enables a patient to budget for their ongoing private dental care. So it's a way that they can just break down the cost of that. Generally speaking, and something we would advocate when we're advising on the structure of a plan with a practice, it's often more a good plan proposition should work out more cost effective than visiting on a pay as you go or fee per item basis. So you're almost rewarding the patient for their loyalty and commitment to the practice. But in doing that, because of the nature of human beings, generally, if you're paying for something, you're going to go and utilize it. So it definitely encourages regular attendance. And naturally, that therefore means that there's a much higher chance of just better oral health, less risk of disease. And I think that is something that is perhaps sometimes lost in what a good plan proposition or what a dental plan is. Yes, it's about breaking down the cost and the financial benefits and perhaps a cost-saving proposition to a patient, but it also is very, very health orientated in that it's that regular attendance and just keeping on top of good oral health.
And there's a financial incentive for the patient, and also just like, because you're going to be at the practice more often, then yeah, you should catch things earlier. You're going to get your teeth cleaned, sooner. That's one of the things. There's a health benefit as well. No, that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
So that's the benefits to the patient.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the specific advantages of having a dental plan for a practice?
Yeah, so the main advantage for a practice is similar in that it ties in that patient loyalty. So you've got that commitment from a patient, and it also means that there's then that if you've got that regular income, then it just helps with cash flow. It helps with forecasting. And therefore it just means that, so for example, through the pandemic, practices, when they had to close their doors, those practices that just had a fee per item, if they were heavily private or fully private and didn't have a plan in place, their income streams were potentially just cut off overnight. Those with a membership maintenance type plan that are just getting that recurring regular revenue, it just meant that there was that cash flow injection really into the business. So definitely helps from on that side of things. Because there is regular attendance, it means that as long as it's done obviously in an ethical manner, then there's the opportunity, it creates opportunity to upsell perhaps other elective dental treatments and cosmetic dentistry. It promotes good oral health, as we said, which I think is a benefit to the practice as well. And probably finally, it generally enhances the value of a practice. So, having that evidence of recurring regular income and patient loyalty at the practice is only going to aid practice valuation if an exit is, on the cards, whether that be on the cards immediately or much further down the line. Having that strong base of plan patients is a big plus.
Awesome, man. So it's good. It's good for business having that sort of steady in stream of cash.
Absolutely, yeah.
Perfect, man. Yeah, fantastic. So you've already mentioned sort of one trend, the trend of sort of more focused on membership plans. What are some of the other trends sort of within the sort of dental plan world or dentistry at large?
Well, I mean, in the plan world, by far, and you only need to pick up one of the popular dental magazines and just have a flick through, the content in there and the adverts from ourselves, but also, other competing, other plan providers in the market. It's just this shift from NHS to private dentistry. So many people are disillusioned with the NHS. I know there's been a few changes in recent months, but I think a lot of people have just felt it's just not enough, and there's just not enough clarity on any sort of real reform with an NHS contract that gives people confidence that this is a sort of viable and attractive proposition in terms of running your business moving forward. So a lot of people are frustrated with the NHS, which is why there is such an appetite to shift to private dentistry. So we have focused a lot of our attention in supporting practices with that. So introducing a plan as a vehicle to achieve that transition, whether that be on what's often termed a principal-led conversion. So perhaps the principal-led, or perhaps the better terminology is a clinician-led conversion, because it doesn't have to be the principal, or it could be a couple of clinicians within a much larger practice that opt to go private. And in doing that, a very proven vehicle to achieve that is to introduce a plan. So rather than, a lot of consumers and patients are put off by the words private dentistry, they just sort of think straight away it's going to be very costly. Introducing an option for them to budget for that private care but is fantastic. But also from a practice's perspective, it gives a very sort of defined way of replacing the NHS income. So we have worked quite hard on developing what we call sort of our calculators to help with all the analysis of that and the way that we structure our team and the resource that we've brought in to support practices through what is a very significant change, whether it be just a clinician that's going private or a full practice is handing back their NHS contract and going private. It's a big change, and it's life changing, and there's a lot of work to get right in terms of the way that that's communicated to patients, the way to get the team on board and engaged in the change and believing it's all for the right reasons, and then just plugging the numbers and ensuring that everything stacks up so that it is the right commercial decision to do that. And just that everything stacks up. It's a huge move. So that's the biggest trend in the market, and something that I definitely see continuing into 2023, and probably just until there is any sort of significant and real change in terms of the reform of an NHS contract. And then the other big trend is, and something we've been very proactive in bringing about, is what we're coining simple switch. So whereas before, patient plan direct in the world of plan providers is we're a cost saving proposition in the market. So our admin fees are significantly lower than some of the other major providers out there. The reasons for that are because we're very focused in the support that we deliver. So we don't offer support in other areas, such as compliance or other auxiliary services that we sort of bolt on. We are all about plan, and very focused on just supporting a dental practice with their dental plan. We're also very technology driven and adopting paperless processes wherever possible. So that enables us to have a lower admin fee. So practices can make huge cost savings by switching from another plan provider. But prior to some banking regulation change at the back end of last year, it was quite a cumbersome process to switch plan provider, which in essence meant that you've got to write to patients and ask them to commit to the plan again. Now everything can be managed in the background using what's called the direct debit bulk change process. So what this means is that it's a very positive communication to the patient, but no call to action for them. And we can liaise with the other plan provider to manage everything in the background to make life so simple for both the patient and the practice. And it's effectively a fantastic way just to access huge cost savings and a very personal service in working with us. So a big trend for us has seen a significant uplift in the number of practices exploring that and switching over to work with us.
Yeah, because I guess before that kind of change in regulation, like you say, switching would be a nightmare, and I guess you'd have quite a lot of people sort of drop off.
Yeah, that was definitely the big fear. It was never as bad as people would have actually thought, but nevertheless, it was a cumbersome process, and there was that risk of drop off. We've now managed dozens of these, and we've got the stats to sort of evidence that really drop off isn't anything more than the natural attrition that you would just expect month to month. So it's a super simple process, and something that we're working really hard to try and educate the market on this, because there is still that misconception that switching plan provider is hassle, and it really isn't anymore.
That's awesome, man. That's really good. So we've obviously talked about what a practice plan is, a dental plan is. We've talked about the benefits to the patient. We've talked about the advantages to the practice itself. Why, from your perspective, why should a practice use someone like you and not try and do it themselves? Like, what are the downfalls or the pitfalls of trying to administer something like this yourself?
No, that's a great question, Mike. And I think there are practices out there that do it themselves. If you break down what we do in its simplest sense, it's the processing of a direct debit and providing the reporting facility around that. So there are payment bureaus out there that can provide that core functionality to enable a practice just to collect payments on their own. But really, in terms of what we're about, I feel we're the happy medium between a do-it-yourself and one of the sort of bigger plan providers that, for want of a better term, try to offer other bells and whistles to justify their higher admin fees. Our admin fees are extremely competitive. We also include a supplementary A&E cover in exactly the same capacity as a lot of the other major plan providers. But it's really just that with ourselves, all our technology, our team, the promotional literature, the practice branded promotional literature that we design and provide and print, the training, the reporting is all geared up for a dental practice. We've got a client services team that's here Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, to pick up the phone, to deal with any administrative things that need looking at. And they understand the dental practice, they understand dental plans. So it's just that, in what we do, it's very specifically orientated around a dental practice without it costing the earth. So you can do it yourself, and some practices do that very successfully. Other practices may work with some of the other more expensive providers and tap into some of the other auxiliary services that they provide and get value from the fees that they pay. But if you want to work with a provider that's purely focused on plan, and everything we do is geared around that in terms of our technology, our people, support and training, but without paying the earth, then I think we're the sort of happy middle ground.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because obviously I deal with practices all the time, and they're busy places at the best of times, like throwing in the administration of a patient plan.
Yeah.
You're just better off just outsourcing that and getting them to focus on the patient care.
Exactly.
Leaving it to someone like yourself. Yeah, just take that off your plate.
It's that cost benefit analysis, and I mean, we're dealing with a couple of practices currently that they've just introduced it and managed it themselves in-house, for want of a better term, using some sort of payment vehicle. And then it's just got to a point where the other thing that's quite common is it becomes reliant on one person's knowledge in the practice. So perhaps the PM or a particular front of house staff that's very familiar with, the direct debit bureau or how that all works. But when that person is off ill or on holiday or even leaves the practice, then all of a sudden it can fall apart a little. Or it just ends up sucking up quite a lot of time to, just review and pay any failed collections, or keeping on top of patients that have cancelled their direct debits, or if somebody needs to move from plan A to plan B, then managing that, etc. It's the little things, but they all just add up. And as you say, there's just 1,000,001 other things that are going on in a practice. So quite often it's just weighing up the cost benefit analysis.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so do that analysis and see if it makes sense for your practice.
Absolutely.
Question for you is, if a patient decides to cancel their direct debit, what happens?
So if a patient cancels the direct debit, then within our systems, they'll get the practice will get notified of that. This is quite a common question with practices who are sort of fearful that a patient is going to join a plan. They'll have their first appointment. They'll have only paid, for 15, 20 quid a month, whatever the plan price is. Probably not the same price as, an exam and a hygiene, if that's what they've had in their first appointment. And then they cancel the plan and cancel their direct debit, and the practice never see the patient again. The reality of that is that it's just not very common. If a patient has come and they've bought it, I mean, as we know at the minute, has been well evidenced across the news of late, patients are really struggling just for access to a dental practice. It's a huge issue at the minute. So if you go to a practice and you sort of buy into what they're about and you commit to a plan, the chances are the patient's going to stick on that plan and not just cancel and do a runner, for want of a better term. But if a patient does cancel, then via our system, we would notify the practice, and then we would support in just dealing with that in whatever the appropriate manner is.
Awesome. That's great, Simon. Perfect. You've already mentioned some of the reasons, why someone should go with Patient Plan Direct. You're very, very focused on dentistry, very focused on plans themselves. you're lower cost, or you're very competitive compared to everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other reasons why someone should consider yourself over the rest of the pack?
I think they're the sort of core reasons that you've just covered there, Mike. However, what I would say is that, and you think this might be a strange thing to say, but we're not the plan provider for everyone. I think it's and ultimately, I believe now we've got an extremely strong proposition that represents excellent value and an amazing team that really cares. But a practice needs to explore. If you are exploring launching a plan for the first time, I would definitely advocate speaking to at least 2, if not 3 providers. Meet the person who you're going to be engaging with, who is going to be your relationship manager, who is going to be your point of contact, what does the customer service look like. Speak to your peers and your other practices that see which provider they use, try and ascertain some sort of good positive feedback, and just make an informed decision. And ultimately, people buy from people, so it's just really about who is the best fit for a given practice. And who do they feel are going to develop a relationship within the best capacity?
Yeah, awesome, man. That's fantastic. So thoroughly enjoyed learning more about sort of dental plans. I had a rough idea, but it's always great to hear it from the expert. The question I ask every guest is, based on your experience as a businessman, based on your experience of being in the dental industry, based on your experience of running a dental focused business, what would be your number one piece of advice for anyone thinking about starting or buying a dental practice?
Yeah, so my advice on this front would be to sort of take a step back and really assess, why you want to buy or start a dental practice. And if that's purely a sort of just perception that that's a given route to success, or that if it's purely financially orientated, I don't think that's the right motivation. There are a lot of entrepreneurial people and dentists out there that have sort of crafted a fantastic career that don't have their own business or their own practice, and I think that dentistry very much lends itself to that. Running a business or owning a business is fantastic and a huge achievement in many ways, but it also comes with a lot of strain and stresses, and there are the good times, but there are also, the bad times and the difficult times and all the challenges that sort of come with it. And there's this thing flying around on social media at the minute that I keep seeing about, I quit my 9 to 5 to start my own business, and now I work 24/7. And in many ways that is true. And I just think it's really anybody who is in that position of considering buying or starting a dental practice, as long as the sort of just really assess what the rationale is and what you're looking for out of your dental career, because there are so many opportunities and paths to craft a very successful career in dentistry without owning a practice. But if it's for very valid reasons, then my advice would be just go for it. Accept there's going to be ups and downs and challenges along the way, but that's just business.
Yeah, Simon, that's fantastic advice. If you figure that out at the start, then you're going to hopefully save yourself a world of pain later on if you decide, actually, I wish I'd never done it.
Absolutely.
That's got to be the worst. That's got to be the worst situation.
Yeah. Exactly that.
No, awesome, man. Simon, this has been fantastic. Thoroughly enjoyed it. You obviously know what you're talking about, which is awesome. If anyone listening, is keen to learn more about dental plans, especially, dental plans from Patient Plan Direct, how can they contact you?
You can contact us by phone, via email, via social. Just Google Patient Plan Direct and everything should come up. I'm on Instagram myself, simon.reynolds.ppd. Feel free to ping me a message on there. But probably, email or phone in the office is the best. So patientplandirect.com or info@patientplandirect.co.uk.
Fantastic. And I will include those in the show notes. So once again, Simon, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. And I'll see you soon.
Cheers, Mike. Really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Simon.